The baby's tiny fingers wrapped around Ji-hoon's expensive Italian leather shoe, and the Korean Mafia boss froze in his tracks. His sharp eyes, which had witnessed countless executions without flinching, widened in absolute shock as he stared down at the drooling infant currently using his leg as a climbing post. The child giggled, oblivious to the danger radiating from the man he was clinging to, and made another determined attempt to pull himself up using Ji-hoon's perfectly pressed pants. "What is this?" Ji-hoon's voice came out low and dangerous, each word dropping like ice into the pristine silence of his penthouse. The baby looked up at him with bright, innocent eyes and laughed again, as if this Korean Mafia boss was the most entertaining thing he'd ever seen. Those tiny hands gripped tighter, and Ji-hoon felt something he hadn't experienced in years, complete and utter confusion mixed with rising fury. Before we continue with this story, if you're enjoying this content, please hit that like button, drop a comment below, and subscribe to the channel. It really helps us grow and allows us to keep making these kinds of videos for you guys. Your support means everything. Now, back to the story. Ji-hoon had returned home early, which was his first mistake. The meeting with the Busan Syndicate had gone sour faster than expected, and he'd left his men to clean up the mess while he retreated to his sanctuary, his immaculate penthouse where everything had its place and chaos was forbidden. He'd loosened his tie as he entered, already planning the scotch he'd pour, the silence he'd enjoy, the absolute control he maintained over every aspect of his domain. Instead, he'd walked into the sound of babbling. Actual baby babbling echoing through his marble-floored living room. His hand had instinctively moved to the gun at his waist as he'd crept forward, wondering what kind of psychological warfare his enemies had devised this time. A baby? In his home? It was so absurd he'd almost convinced himself he was hallucinating from stress. But no, there it was. A very real, very messy infant crawling across his white carpet, leaving a trail of what he desperately hoped was just drool and not something worse. And now that baby was clinging to him like he was a jungle gym. "Get in here. Now!" Ji-hoon's roar shattered the air. The sound of rapid footsteps came from the direction of the kitchen, and then she appeared. Nia, his cleaning woman, her dark skin pale with terror, her usually calm eyes wide with panic. She was a Black American woman who'd been working for him for 6 months, always punctual, always thorough, always invisible, which was exactly how he liked his staff. But today, she'd brought a baby into his home. "Sir. Oh God, sir, I'm so sorry." Nia rushed forward and scooped the baby up, but not before the child let out a wail of protest at being separated from his new favorite person. "I can explain, please, just let me." "Explain?" Ji-hoon's voice could have cut glass. "Explain how there is an infant in my home? Explain how you violated every single rule of your employment? Explain how you thought this was acceptable?" Nia held the crying baby against her chest, bouncing him slightly in that universal mother's motion, but her eyes never left Ji-hoon's face. He could see her throat working as she swallowed hard. "The daycare called me this morning," she said, her voice shaking but trying to remain steady. "Emergency closure. Burst pipe. They said they'd be closed all week for repairs. I don't have family here in Korea, sir. No one to call. No one to help. I know I should have called in sick, but I already used my sick days last month when he had that fever, and I can't afford to lose this job. And I thought I could keep him quiet in the kitchen. I thought you wouldn't be home until evening. I thought." "You thought wrong." Ji-hoon's jaw was so tight it ached. "This is my home. My sanctuary. Not a daycare center. Not a playground. There are rules, and you broke them." The baby's cries intensified, and he began reaching over Nia's shoulder toward Ji-hoon, his little arms stretching out desperately. It was almost comical, except nothing about this situation was funny. "He just wants to play with you, sir," Nia said quietly, still bouncing the wailing infant. "He's usually so good, I promise. He won't bother you if you just let me." "Let you what?" "Let you continue to use my home as a nursery." Ji-hoon's voice rose. "Do you have any idea who I am? What I do? The kind of meetings I have here? The kind of people who come through that door?" "Yes, sir." "Then you know this is impossible. Unacceptable." He gestured sharply at the door. "Get out. Both of you. You're fired." The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Nia flinched as if he'd struck her, and the baby, sensing his mother's distress, cried even harder. Those little arms kept reaching for Ji-hoon, as if he could somehow make everything better. Ji-hoon turned away, unable to look at those desperate tiny hands anymore. I want you gone in 10 minutes. Leave your key on the table. He expected more pleading, more tears, more apologies. That's what people always did when he fired them. They begged, they bargained, they debased themselves. But Nia went quiet. When she spoke again, her voice had changed. The fear was still there, but underneath it was something else. Something that made Ji-hoon pause despite himself. Your brother would have held him. The words hit Ji-hoon like a physical blow. He spun around, his face draining of color. What did you say? Nia stood straighter, the baby still crying against her shoulder, but her eyes were clear now. Sad, but clear. I said, your brother would have held him. He would have understood. You don't know anything about my brother. Ji-hoon's voice came out hoarse, dangerous. I clean your study, sir. Every Tuesday and Friday for 6 months. Nia's voice was gentle but firm. I've seen the photos on your desk. The one where he's holding those neighborhood children, making them laugh. The one from the festival where he's carrying that little boy on his shoulders. I've seen you talk to his picture late at night when you think no one's listening. Ji-hoon felt his hands clench into fists at his sides. How dare she? How dare she watch him in his private moments? How dare she speak about? I've heard what you tell him, Nia continued, and there were tears on her cheeks now, but her voice didn't waver. About how you wish you'd been more like him. About how he knew how to love people, how to be gentle. About how he told you not to become your father. Stop. The word came out barely above a whisper. He was kind, wasn't he? He would have seen a scared mother trying to keep her job and a baby who just wanted someone to smile at him. And he would have understood. Maybe he would have even helped. Ji-hoon's brother. His younger brother. Dead for 3 years now. Killed by a rival gang while protecting Ji-hoon during an ambush. The last person who'd ever made Ji-hoon laugh. The last person who'd ever hugged him. The last person who'd ever called him Hyung with love instead of fear. His brother, who had always talked about wanting a family someday. About being different from their father, who'd ruled with an iron fist and a cold heart. About teaching children kindness in a world of cruelty. The memory hit him with perfect clarity, his brother's voice, warm and teasing, during their last conversation. Hyung, when you finally have kids, don't be like father. Hold them. Love them. Show them there's more to strength than fear. Ji-hoon had laughed it off then. I'm not having kids. Too dangerous in our line of work. Then hold someone else's kids. Just, don't forget how to be human, okay? He hadn't. He'd forgotten anyway. Looking at Nia now, at the baby who'd finally quieted to soft hiccups, still reaching toward him with those trusting arms, Ji-hoon felt something crack inside his chest. Something that had been frozen solid for 3 years. He stopped, unsure what he'd even been about to say. Nia wiped her eyes with her free hand. I'm sorry, sir. That was inappropriate. I shouldn't have mentioned him. I'll go now. She shifted the baby to her other hip and moved toward the bedroom where she'd apparently stashed her things. I'll leave my key. Thank you for the employment these past months. The pay was good. Fair. Ji-hoon stood rooted to the spot, watching her back as she walked away. The baby looked over her shoulder at him, those big eyes still hopeful, still reaching. Ji-hoon opened his mouth, then closed it again. What could he say? She was right. About everything. His brother would have held that baby. His brother would have told Nia to take the day off with pay. His brother would have probably spent the afternoon making the child laugh, would have asked about daycare options, would have helped. His brother had been everything Ji-hoon wasn't. Warm where Ji-hoon was cold. Open where Ji-hoon was closed. Alive where Ji-hoon was merely surviving. But his brother was gone, and Ji-hoon was still here, standing in his pristine penthouse, having just fired a single mother for the crime of trying to keep her job while caring for her child. He watched Nia disappear into the back room, heard the sounds of her gathering her cleaning supplies, her son's diaper bag, the few personal items she kept in the storage closet. The baby had gone quiet now, probably sensing his mother's resignation. Ji-hoon's legs felt heavy as he walked to his study. The photo Nia had mentioned sat exactly where it always did. His brother at the Cherry Blossom Festival, a neighborhood kid perched on his shoulders, both of them laughing at something off camera. Ji-hoon's brother had been 23 in that photo. He'd never made it to 26. What would you do? Ji-hoon whispered to the photograph, his voice cracking. You always knew the right thing. You always knew how to be good. The photo, of course, didn't answer. The dead never did, no matter how desperately you needed their guidance. When Nia emerged 15 minutes later, her eyes were red but dry. She'd composed herself, put on that mask of professional distance that all employees learn to wear around him. The baby was in a worn carrier strapped to her chest, his little face peeking out, those curious eyes still watching Ji-hoon with interest. She placed the key on the marble entryway table with a soft click that seemed to echo through the entire penthouse. The bathroom under the stairs has a loose tile, she said quietly, professionally. Third one from the left. And the filter in the air purifier in your bedroom needs changing. I ordered a replacement, but it hasn't arrived yet. Should be here by Thursday. The new girl should know to check for it. Even now, even fired, she was trying to help. Trying to make sure her replacement would know what to do. Nia. Her name felt strange on his tongue. He'd never used it before. Always just called her you, or nothing at all. She looked up at him, waiting. The apology stuck in his throat. Ji-hoon didn't apologize. Didn't explain. Didn't justify. He gave orders and people obeyed, or they faced consequences. That was the only way to survive in his world. But his brother's voice echoed in his head. Don't forget how to be human. I'm sorry, he finally managed, but it came out too quiet. And by the time the words left his lips, Nia had already bowed one final time and was walking toward the elevator. She didn't hear him. Or maybe she did and chose not to acknowledge it. Either way, the elevator doors closed behind her and the baby, and Ji-hoon was alone in his perfect, pristine, empty penthouse. He stood there for a long moment, staring at the spot where the baby had been crawling. There was a small wet spot on his white carpet. Drool, probably. He should call his backup cleaning service immediately. Get it treated before it's stained. Instead, he walked to his liquor cabinet and poured 3 fingers of scotch. Then he sat in his leather armchair and stared at nothing. That night, Ji-hoon didn't sleep. He kept seeing the baby's face, those trusting eyes, those reaching arms. Kept hearing Nia's calm, devastating words. Your brother would have held him. He got up at 3 in the morning and went to his study, pulling out the box of his brother's belongings he kept in the bottom drawer. Letters. Photos. A worn paperback book on child psychology his brother had been reading before he died. For when I'm an uncle, he'd joked. You'll have kids eventually, Hyung, and I need to know how to spoil them properly. There was a sticky note on the first page in his brother's handwriting. Children need consistency, warmth, and to feel safe. Just like everyone else. Just like you, Hyung. Ji-hoon's hands trembled as he held the book. When had he last felt safe? When had he last offered safety to anyone else? The next 3 days passed in a blur. Ji-hoon went through the motions. Meetings with his lieutenants, discussions about territory disputes, decisions about shipments and payoffs, and all the machinery that kept his criminal empire running. But his mind wasn't fully present. He kept seeing babies everywhere. On television commercials. In parks as his car drove past. A couple with a stroller crossing the street. And he'd found himself watching until they disappeared from view. His men noticed. Of course they noticed. Boss, are you all right? His second-in-command, Tae-sung, had asked during a particularly important meeting about the Port Authority situation. You seem distracted. I'm fine. Ji-hoon had snapped, and the meeting had continued. But Tae-sung's concerned eyes had lingered. On the 4th day, Ji-hoon broke. He called in his head of security, Min-jae, a man who'd been with him for a decade and knew how to be discreet. I need an address, he said simply. Min-jae didn't ask questions. That's why he'd survived so long in this business. By evening, Ji-hoon had Nia's home address, employment history, and a full background check on his desk. She lived in a small apartment in a less affluent part of Seoul, working 3 jobs now, according to Min-jae's report. The cleaning position with Ji-hoon had been her primary income. Without it, she was scrambling to make rent, working herself to exhaustion. The baby's name was there too, though Ji-hoon hadn't asked for it. He stared at the information for a long moment, then closed the folder. The next morning, Ji-hoon had his assistant order the most expensive baby clothes from a high-end boutique. Designer outfits that cost more than most people's monthly salary. He had them delivered to Nia's address with a note that simply said, an apology. They were returned the next day with a note in Nia's neat handwriting. Thank you, but we're fine. Ji-hoon stared at the returned package in disbelief. People didn't refuse his gifts. People didn't refuse anything from him. They accepted with gratitude and fear, knowing that his generosity was just another form of control. But Nia had sent them back. He tried again. This time, expensive toys, educational ones that the boutique owner assured him were perfect for developmental growth. He had no idea what that meant, but if he was going to apologize, he'd do it properly. Those came back too, with another note. We don't need these. Ji-hoon's frustration mounted. What did she want from him? What would make this right? On the third attempt, he sent an envelope containing enough cash to cover 6 months of premium daycare, along with information about the best childcare facilities in Seoul. Surely she couldn't refuse this. This was practical. This was helpful. This was what she needed. Instead of a returned envelope, Nia herself showed up at his office. His secretary buzzed him, sounding nervous. "Sir, there's a Nia Johnson here to see you. She doesn't have an appointment, but she says it's urgent. Send her in." Nia entered his office wearing the same worn jeans and simple shirt she'd always cleaned in, but she held her head high. The baby wasn't with her, probably with whatever cheap babysitter she could afford now. She placed the envelope on his desk, the cash still inside, unopened. "I don't need your guilt money, sir," she said, and her voice was steady, professional, but there was steel underneath it. "I needed my job. I needed respect. I needed to be able to provide for my son with dignity." "I'm trying to apologize," Ji-hoon said, and he heard the defensiveness in his own voice. "Then say the words." Nia's eyes met his directly. "Don't buy them. Don't throw money at the problem and hope it goes away. That's not an apology. That's just what people with money do to make themselves feel better." The words stung because they were true. Ji-hoon had bought his way out of guilt before. Donated to charities after particularly bloody operations. Sent expensive gifts to the families of men he'd had killed, as if luxury items could somehow balance the scales of mortality. "I am sorry," he said, but Nia was already turning toward the door. "No, you're not. Not really. You're sorry you feel bad. That's not the same thing." She paused at the door, her hand on the handle. "Your brother would have said the words first. Meant them. Then maybe asked how he could help, instead of assuming he knew what we needed." The door closed behind her with a soft click, and Ji-hoon sat in his office, alone with his failure. He looked down at the envelope of cash, untouched, refused. A simple apology. That's all she'd wanted. Words. And he'd given her everything except that. He picked up his phone, almost called her back, then stopped. What would he say? That he'd spent 3 years building walls so high he'd forgotten how to speak like a human being? That saying, "I'm sorry," out loud, with meaning, felt like admitting weakness, and weakness got you killed in his world? That night, Ji-hoon found himself driving through the city with no destination in mind. His driver had offered to take him, but he'd wanted to be alone. The streets of Seoul blurred past, neon signs reflecting off rain-slicked pavement, and somehow, though he'd never admit it was intentional, he found himself in Nia's neighborhood. It was nearly 9 in the evening. He parked across the street from her building, a modest apartment complex that had seen better days. The lights were on in what his report said was her unit, 4th floor, corner apartment. He sat there in his expensive car, watching the warm glow of her windows, and felt like the world's biggest fool. What was he doing? Stalking his former employee? Watching her like some kind of obsessed creep? He should leave. Go home. Forget about the woman and her baby and move on with his life. But then he saw her. Nia emerged from the building's entrance, the baby strapped to her chest in that worn carrier, and she looked exhausted. Bone deep, soul-crushing exhaustion. She walked to the bus stop, checking her phone for the schedule, bouncing slightly to keep the baby content. Ji-hoon checked his watch. 9:15. Where was she going this late with a baby? He watched her board the bus, and before he could talk himself out of it, he was following. Keeping a careful distance, his dark car blending into Seoul's nighttime traffic. The bus wound through the city, and Ji-hoon followed, feeling increasingly foolish but unable to stop. The bus stopped in a commercial district, and Nia got off. Ji-hoon parked and watched as she entered a 24-hour office building. He sat there for a moment, then pulled out his phone and called Min-jae. "I need information on 157 Gangnam Avenue, the office building. What businesses operate there at night?" Min-jae called back 10 minutes later. "Mostly call centers and cleaning services for commercial clients. Night shifts." "What?" Ji-hoon hung up without answering. Nia was working a night shift cleaning office buildings, with her baby strapped to her chest because she couldn't afford childcare during these hours. While Ji-hoon sat in his penthouse drinking expensive scotch, she was scrubbing toilets and vacuuming conference rooms with an infant sleeping against her heart. Because he'd fired her. Because she'd committed the terrible crime of being a mother who needed her job. He sat in his car until almost midnight, when Nia emerged again, the baby now asleep in the carrier. She looked like she could barely stand, but she made her way back to the bus stop, checking the schedule with bleary eyes. Ji-hoon's hands gripped the steering wheel so hard his knuckles went white. His brother's voice echoed in his head, clearer than it had been in years. Don't forget how to be human, Hyung. He'd failed. He'd failed his brother. He'd failed Nia. He'd failed that innocent baby who'd only wanted to play, who'd looked at Ji-hoon like he could be someone worth trusting. The next day, Ji-hoon found himself doing something he hadn't done in years. He went for a walk. Not a purposeful walk to a meeting or a restaurant. Just a walk. Through the park near his penthouse, where families gathered on Sunday afternoons. And that's when he saw them. Nia was sitting on a bench, the baby in her lap, and she was singing to him. Her voice was soft and sweet, and the baby was giggling, clapping his little hands together. Despite everything, the exhaustion, the financial stress, the multiple jobs, she was smiling at her son like he was the most precious thing in the world. The baby saw Ji-hoon first. Those bright eyes lit up with recognition, and he started waving frantically, bouncing in his mother's lap with excitement. Nia looked up, saw Ji-hoon standing there, and her expression shuddered. She gathered the baby closer, protective, wary. "I'm not following you," Ji-hoon said quickly, which was a lie, and they both knew it. "I mean, I am, but not in a. I just happened to be." He stopped, took a breath. He was Ji-hoon, leader of one of Seoul's most powerful crime syndicates, and he was stammering like a schoolboy. "What do you want, sir?" Nia's voice was polite but distant. The baby was still waving at him, making happy sounds, trying to lean toward Ji-hoon from his mother's arms. "He remembers you," Nia said quietly. "He's too young to understand that you're the reason we're struggling right now." The words hit like bullets. Ji-hoon flinched. "I know," he said. "I know, and I wanted to say that I'm sorry. Actually sorry. With words. Not money. Not gifts. Just, I'm sorry." Nia studied his face for a long moment. The baby continued to reach for him, making grabby hands that were impossible to ignore. "Why now?" she asked. "What changed? I saw you last night. At the office building. Working with him." Ji-hoon gestured to the baby. "I saw what my actions caused. The real consequences. Not just theoretical guilt, but actual harm to actual people. To you. To him. So you followed me there too?" "Yes. No point in lying. I haven't been able to stop thinking about what you said. About my brother. About what kind of man I've become." The baby let out a cry of frustration at being held back from his new favorite person, and Nia sighed. "He's going to throw a tantrum if I don't let him down." She looked at Ji-hoon. "Do you mind if he comes to you? He seems determined." "I don't. I've never held a baby. He'll teach you." Nia set the baby down on the ground, and immediately he began crawling toward Ji-hoon at impressive speed, giggling the whole way. Ji-hoon stood frozen as the baby reached him and immediately began using his legs to pull himself up. Those tiny fingers gripped his pants, and the baby looked up at him with pure joy. No fear, no hesitation. Just trust. "Pick him up before he falls," Nia said, and there was the faintest trace of amusement in her voice. Ji-hoon bent down awkwardly and lifted the baby under his arms. The child weighed almost nothing. How could something so small and fragile exist in a world as brutal as this one? The baby immediately wrapped his arms around Ji-hoon's neck, clinging to him like he'd found something he'd been searching for. And Ji-hoon felt his chest crack open completely. This tiny human, who had every reason to fear him, who he'd rejected and yelled at, was hugging him like he was someone worth loving. "I don't deserve this," Ji-hoon whispered. "No," Nia agreed, standing up and moving closer. "You don't. But he doesn't know that. All he knows is that you're tall and interesting and you were nice to him once. So you must be a good person." "I'm not a good person. I know what you are, sir. I'm not stupid. I know the kind of man who lives in a penthouse like that, who has the kind of security you have, who gets the kind of visitors you get late at night." Nia's voice was matter of fact. "I know you're dangerous. I knew it when I took the job." The baby cooed against Ji-hoon's neck, completely content. "Then why did you work for me?" "Because dangerous doesn't always mean evil. And because you paid well and on time and never tried to touch me inappropriately, which puts you ahead of 2 other employers I've had in this city." Nia reached out and adjusted the baby's shirt where it had ridden up. "And because I heard you talking to your brother's picture one night when I was working late. I heard you crying. Dangerous men who cry over their dead brothers aren't completely lost." Ji-hoon felt heat rising in his face. "You heard that. I hear a lot of things. I'm invisible, remember? That's how you like your staff." She met his eyes. "But your brother wasn't invisible to you. He mattered. And you miss him. Every day." The admission came out before Ji-hoon could stop it. "He sounds like he was a good man. He was everything I'm not." Nia tilted her head, studying him. Maybe. Or maybe he was just brave enough to show the parts of himself you keep locked away. The baby started squirming, wanting down to explore. Ji-hoon set him carefully on the ground, and immediately the child began investigating a nearby pile of leaves with intense focus. They stood there in silence for a moment, watching the baby discover the fascinating world of autumn leaves. He picked one up, examined it with the serious concentration only a child could muster, then promptly tried to eat it. "No, baby, leaves aren't food," Nia said, moving forward to gently extract the leaf from his mouth. The baby protested, then immediately forgot about it when he spotted a small stone that was apparently even more interesting. "How do you do it?" Ji-hoon asked quietly. "Do what?" "Stay so calm. So patient. You're working 3 jobs, exhausted, struggling to make rent because of what I did, and you still sit here singing to him like nothing's wrong." Nia was quiet for a long moment, watching her son explore. Because he didn't do anything wrong. He's innocent in all of this. And he deserves a mother who smiles at him, who makes him feel safe and loved, regardless of what chaos is happening in my life. That's what being a parent means. My father never did that. I know. I heard that too, in your late-night conversations with your brother's photo. Nia glanced at him. Your father made you afraid. Your brother tried to make you feel safe. And now you don't know how to be either afraid or safe, so you just stay in control instead. Ji-hoon felt exposed, seen in a way he hadn't been since his brother died. You should have been a therapist, not a cleaning woman. Couldn't afford the education. Single mother, remember? There was no bitterness in her voice, just statement of fact. Besides, I'm good at cleaning. And I'm good at watching people. You'd be surprised what you learn about someone from how they live when they think no one's paying attention. The baby had discovered Ji-hoon's shoe again and was crawling back toward him with clear intent. This time, Ji-hoon crouched down to his level. The baby clapped his hands with delight and lunged forward, nearly toppling over before Ji-hoon caught him. "He likes you," Nia observed. "He's not usually this friendly with strangers." "Why?" Ji-hoon found himself asking. "Why doesn't he hate me?" I yelled. I scared him. He's a baby. He doesn't hold grudges. He just knows that right now, in this moment, you're being gentle with him. That's all that matters to him. She paused. Maybe that's something adults should learn. The baby was now attempting to climb Ji-hoon like a tree, using his shirt as handholds. Ji-hoon picked him up again, more confidently this time, and the child immediately began exploring his face with curious fingers, poking his nose, touching his ears, patting his cheeks. "What's his name?" Ji-hoon asked, realizing he'd never actually asked before. "Does it matter?" "Yes." And Ji-hoon realized he meant it. This wasn't just the baby anymore. This was a person, a small person who deserved to be known. Nia searched his face, looking for something. Whatever she saw must have satisfied her, because she answered, "I call him baby, or sweetheart. I haven't told anyone his actual name in Korea. It's safer that way." "Safer from what?" "From his father finding us." Nia's voice went flat. "That's why I'm here. In Korea, running, hoping distance and an ocean will be enough." Ji-hoon felt cold rage building in his chest. "He hurt you." "He tried to. When I told him I was pregnant, he wanted me to get rid of it. When I refused, he got violent. I left that night with nothing but the clothes on my back and the money I'd been secretly saving." She took a breath. "A friend helped me get to Korea. Said it was far enough away that he'd never find me. That I could start over. And then you started working for another dangerous man." Ji-hoon's voice was bitter with self-awareness. "At least you never pretended to love me first," Nia said simply. "At least I knew what you were from the start." That's its own kind of honesty. The baby was getting sleepy, his energetic exploration slowing. He rested his head on Ji-hoon's shoulder with a contented sigh, and Ji-hoon felt something in his chest that he hadn't felt in 3 years. Something warm and terrifying and precious. "I want to help," he said. "Really help. Not with money or gifts. With actual help. Whatever you need." "Why?" Nia's eyes were suspicious now. "What's in it for you?" "Nothing. Maybe that's the point." Ji-hoon looked down at the sleepy baby in his arms. "My brother told me not to forget how to be human. I forgot anyway. Maybe this is how I start remembering. I don't need charity. I'm not offering charity. I'm offering amends. There's a difference." Nia studied him for a long moment. The baby had fully fallen asleep now, his small body warm and trusting against Ji-hoon's chest. "He needs to nap. I should take him home. Let me drive you." When Nia started to protest, Ji-hoon added, "Please. It's the least I can do. And you're exhausted. I can see it. Something in Nia's defenses cracked. Okay, just this once. Jihoon's car was parked nearby, and his driver looked shocked when he approached carrying a baby, with Nia walking beside him. Jihoon ignored the man's expression and climbed into the back seat, still holding the sleeping child. You can put him in his carrier, Nia said, climbing in beside him with the worn baby carrier she'd pulled from her bag. I don't want to wake him. So they drove through Seoul in silence, Jihoon holding a sleeping baby, Nia watching them both with an expression he couldn't quite read. When they reached her building, Jihoon carefully transferred the baby to Nia's arms, and the child barely stirred. Thank you, Nia said quietly. For the ride. And for the apology. The real one. Can I see you again? The words came out before Jihoon could stop them. Both of you. Tomorrow, maybe. At the park. Why? Because he's teaching me something. About trust. About second chances. Jihoon met her eyes. And because you're right. My brother would have wanted me to be better than I am. Maybe you two can help me figure out how. Nia was quiet for so long that Jihoon thought she'd refuse. Then she nodded slowly. Tomorrow. 2 o'clock. Same bench. But if you're late, we're leaving. I'll be early. Over the next 2 weeks, Jihoon found himself living a double life. By night, he was still the cold, calculating crime lord, making decisions that affected territories and money and lives. But during the day, he was becoming someone else. Someone who met a woman and her baby in the park. Someone who learned how to stack blocks and make silly faces. Someone who brought simple toys, not expensive ones, just the kind any uncle might bring, and felt absurdly proud when they made the baby laugh. He learned that the baby loved music, would bounce and giggle whenever Nia sang. He learned that peekaboo was apparently the height of comedy. He learned that sometimes the best thing you could do was just sit quietly and be present while a child explored the world around him. And he learned about Nia, really learned, not from a background check, but from actual conversations. She'd been a nurse in training back in America before her ex-boyfriend derailed everything. She loved jazz music and classic novels. She missed her grandmother, who'd raised her, who'd passed away 2 years ago. She was terrified of failing her son, of not being enough, of the world being too hard and her being too soft. You're not soft, Jihoon told her one afternoon while the baby napped in his stroller between them. You're strong. Strength isn't always loud and aggressive. Sometimes it's quiet and persistent, like water wearing away stone. Did you read that in a fortune cookie? Nia teased, but she smiled. My brother used to say it. He was always reading philosophy books, trying to convince me there were other ways to be powerful than through fear. Smart man. He was. Jihoon paused. He would have liked you. Would have liked him too. He nodded toward the sleeping baby. Tell me about him, Nia said softly. Your brother. Not the sad parts. The good parts. So Jihoon did. He talked about his brother's terrible singing voice and how he'd sing anyway, at the top of his lungs, just to make Jihoon laugh. About how he'd sneak sweets to neighborhood kids despite their father's strict rules. About how he'd once spent 3 hours helping an elderly woman carry her groceries home, then came back covered in cat hair because she'd had 17 cats and insisted he meet every single one. Nia laughed at the stories, and Jihoon realized he was laughing too. Really laughing. Not the cold amusement he sometimes showed at business dealings, but genuine joy at the memory of someone he'd loved. He sounds wonderful, Nia said. He was. And I failed him. How did you fail him? Nia's voice was gentle, non-judgmental. Jihoon was quiet for a long moment, watching the baby sleep. He died protecting me, taking a bullet meant for me. And his last words were asking me to promise I'd find something worth living for besides revenge and power. I promised. Then I spent 3 years doing exactly what he asked me not to do. You're here now, aren't you? With us. That's something. It's not enough. Maybe not. But it's a start. Nia reached over and adjusted the baby's blanket. Grief makes us do strange things. Makes us forget who we were, who we wanted to be. But it doesn't have to be permanent. The baby stirred, making small sounds, and then his eyes opened. He saw Jihoon immediately, and his whole face lit up with a smile so pure, so full of uncomplicated joy, that Jihoon felt his throat tighten. Up, the baby said, his first clear word directed at Jihoon, arms reaching. Up, up. He's talking more, Nia said, pride evident in her voice. Learning new words every day. Jihoon picked up the baby, who immediately wrapped his arms around his neck in what had become their ritual greeting. That fierce little hug that said, I trust you. I choose you. I want you here. What do I do to deserve this? Ji-hoon whispered against the baby's soft hair. You show up, Nia said simply. You're consistent. You're gentle with him. That's all kids really need. To know you'll be there, that you're safe. The rest is just details. Over the following days, their meetings became longer. Ji-hoon started bringing coffee for Nia, exactly how she liked it, after paying attention to how she ordered it once. He brought healthy snacks for the baby, the kind Nia mentioned he liked. Simple things. Thoughtful things. He found himself telling her things he'd never told anyone. About the pressure of taking over the family business. About the weight of all the lives that depended on his decisions. Both his own men and the civilians caught in the crossfire of gang politics. About how tired he was of being feared instead of known. So stop, Nia said one evening as they watched the baby play in the sandbox. Stop what? Being that person. You have power, right? Use it differently. You can't erase what you've done, but you can change what you do next. It's not that simple, isn't it? You're the boss. You make the rules. Nia looked at him directly. Or are you just afraid that if you stop being scary, you'll stop mattering? The question hit harder than any punch Ji-hoon had ever taken. My brother asked me something similar once. Right before he died. He asked if I even remembered what I wanted out of life anymore, or if I'd become nothing but the role I played. What did you tell him? I didn't answer. I said we'd talk about it later. But later never came. The baby had discovered a small toy truck another child had left behind and brought it over to Ji-hoon with great ceremony, placing it in his hands like a precious gift. Play, the baby demanded, settling himself in Ji-hoon's lap. So Ji-hoon played. He made truck sounds and rolled the toy around while the baby giggled and clapped. And for those few minutes, he wasn't a crime lord or a feared enforcer or a man with blood on his hands. He was just someone making a child laugh. When the baby got tired, he climbed up Ji-hoon's chest and rested his head against his shoulder, thumb in his mouth, completely content. Ji-hoon held him carefully, feeling the small heartbeat against his own chest, and thought about how fragile life was. How precious. How easily destroyed. I want to know you more, he said to Nia, the words surprising even himself. Both of you. Not just these afternoon meetings. I want to be part of your lives. If you'll let me. Nia was quiet, watching her son sleep in Ji-hoon's arms. Why? Really why? Not the pretty answer about your brother or being better. The real reason. Ji-hoon thought about lying, about giving her the answer that would make him sound noble or redeemed. But she deserved truth. Because when I'm with you too, I remember what it feels like to be human. To care about something beyond strategy and survival. To have someone look at me and see a person instead of a weapon. He looked down at the sleeping baby. And because he chose me, for no logical reason, with nothing to gain, he decided I was worth trusting. No one's done that in 3 years. Maybe I want to find out if he's right. And if he's wrong, if you're not worth that trust, then I'll spend however long it takes proving that I can be. Nia studied his face for a long time. Ji-hoon met her gaze steadily, letting her see whatever she needed to see. Finally, she nodded slowly. Okay, but I need you to understand something. My son comes first. Always. Before you, before your feelings, before any of this. If you become a danger to him, or if your world threatens him in any way, we're gone. No discussion. No second chances. We disappear, and you never find us. I understand. Do you? Because I've run before. I can do it again. And your resources, your power. None of that matters if I'm motivated enough to protect my child. I would never hurt him. Either of you. Maybe not intentionally. But your life is dangerous. You said so yourself. Men in your position have enemies. And enemies look for weaknesses. She gestured to the baby sleeping peacefully in Ji-hoon's arms. This would be a weakness they could exploit. Then I'll protect you. Both of you. Whatever it takes. You can't promise that. You can't control everything, no matter how powerful you are. No, but I can try. And I can promise that I'll never use you or him as pieces in whatever games I play. You'll be separate from that world. Protected from it. Nia laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. Nothing's separate from your world. That's the nature of power. It touches everything around it. Then I'll change my world. The words came out with a certainty that surprised Ji-hoon. My brother wanted me to. You're asking me to. Maybe it's time I actually tried. People don't change that easily. Maybe not. But people can grow, can learn, can choose to be different than they were. Ji-hoon looked at the baby in his arms. He doesn't know what I've done, who I've hurt, the choices I've made. When he looks at me, all he sees is someone who plays with him and makes him feel safe. Maybe I can become the person he thinks I am. The baby stirred slightly, making soft sleeping sounds, and instinctively Ji-hoon adjusted his hold, keeping him comfortable. The movement was natural now, after 2 weeks of practice. His arms had learned the weight and shape of this small life. You're different with him, Nia observed. Softer, more patient. I've seen you check your phone during our meetings. I know you're getting messages about business, probably urgent ones. But you never rush through our time together. You're present. This matters more. The admission felt vulnerable, dangerous. Whatever's happening in my other life can wait an hour or two. This can't. He's growing every day. Changing. I don't want to miss it. Why does it matter so much? Really? Ji-hoon thought about his answer carefully. Because for 3 years, I've watched people grow smaller in my presence. They see me and they shrink back, make themselves less, hide their true selves out of fear. But he grows bigger, more confident, more himself. He sees me and he expands, reaches out, demands more. It's like he's teaching me that I can be someone people move toward instead of away from. That's a lot of pressure to put on a baby. I know, but he doesn't feel the pressure. He just is. Authentic, present, trusting. Everything I've forgotten how to be. Nia was quiet for a moment. My mama used to say that children are mirrors. They reflect back what you give them. If you give them fear, they learn to be afraid. If you give them love, they learn to trust. Maybe he's showing you what you're capable of when you let your walls down. Your mother sounds wise. She was. Raised me alone after my dad left. Worked 2 jobs, never complained. Always made sure I knew I was loved and valued. Nia's voice went soft with memory. She would have liked you, I think. Once she got past the whole crime lord thing. She always believed people could change if they wanted to badly enough. Do you believe that? Nia looked at him for a long moment, then at her sleeping son cradled so carefully in Ji-hoon's arms. I'm starting to. Against my better judgment, but I'm starting to. They sat in comfortable silence as the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. The park was emptying out, other families heading home for dinner. But neither of them moved. This moment felt too precious to rush. We should go, Nia finally said. He'll wake up cranky if his schedule gets too disrupted. Ji-hoon carefully transferred the baby back to Nia's arms, and the child barely stirred, just nestled against his mother with a contented sigh. As they walked toward the park exit, Ji-hoon found himself not wanting the afternoon to end. Can I see you tomorrow? He asked. You saw us today, and yesterday, and the day before that. I know, but I want to see you tomorrow too. Nia stopped walking and turned to face him fully. What are we doing here? Really? Because this is starting to feel like more than just you making amends or honoring your brother's memory. Ji-hoon's heart was pounding. He'd faced down armed rivals without this much fear. I don't know exactly what this is, but I know I don't want it to stop. I know that the hours I spend with you two are the best part of my day. I know that I check my watch constantly when we're apart, counting down until I can see you again. That sounds like. I know what it sounds like. Ji-hoon cut her off gently. And maybe that's terrifying for both of us. But it's the truth. We're from completely different worlds. You're a Korean crime boss. I'm a Black American single mother working 3 jobs to survive. This doesn't make sense. My brother used to say that the best things in life rarely make sense. They just feel right. Ji-hoon stepped closer. Does this feel wrong to you? Nia's breath caught. No, that's the problem. It doesn't feel wrong. It feels dangerous and complicated and potentially disastrous, but it doesn't feel wrong. Then give it a chance. Give me a chance. Not to be perfect or redeemed or anything I'm probably not capable of being. Just a chance to be in your life. To be someone who makes you smile instead of just someone who signs your paycheck. You don't sign my paycheck anymore. You fired me, remember? Then let me be something else. Something better. The baby woke up at that moment, looking between them with sleepy, curious eyes. He reached out for Ji-hoon, making his demanding up sound. He's choosing for both of us, Nia said with a slight smile, handing the baby over. The baby immediately cuddled against Ji-hoon's chest, and Ji-hoon felt that now familiar warmth spread through him. Smart kid. Too smart sometimes. But Nia's eyes were soft as she watched them together. Okay, tomorrow. But we need to talk about what this actually means. Ground rules. Boundaries. Protection for him. Whatever you need. I need honesty. Complete honesty. About your world. About the dangers. About what being connected to you could mean for us. Ji-hoon nodded. You deserve that. Tomorrow. I'll tell you everything. That night, Ji-hoon barely slept. His mind raced with everything he needed to say, everything Nia needed to know. The territory disputes, the rival gangs, the constant threat of violence that shadowed his every move. How could he explain that world to her without driving her away? But when he met them at the park the next day, Nia's expression was serious and determined. "Before we talk," she said, "I need to tell you something. Last night, someone followed me home from work." Ji-hoon went cold. "What?" "I'm not sure who. Could have been random. Could have been connected to my ex. Could have been connected to me." Ji-hoon finished, his voice hard. "Someone saw us together. Started looking into you. That's what I'm afraid of." Ji-hoon pulled out his phone immediately, calling Min-jae. "I need a full security detail on the address I'm sending you. Now. And find out who's been watching that location." He paused. "And Min-jae? This is personal. Treat it like it's me being threatened." He hung up and turned back to Nia, who was holding the baby protectively. "I'm sorry. This is exactly what you were afraid of. Is this what it's going to be like? Constant danger? Always looking over our shoulders? Let me protect you. Both of you. Move in with me. My penthouse has security that—" "No." Nia's voice was firm. "I can't bring him into your world like that. That's too much, too fast, too dangerous." "Then what do you want me to do? Just watch while someone threatens you? Hope they go away on their own." The baby, sensing the tension, started to fuss. Nia bounced him automatically, her movements practiced and soothing. "I want you to be honest with me. Is this person a threat because of you or because of my ex?" "I don't know yet, but I will find out." Ji-hoon's voice was ice cold, the crime boss emerging. "And I will handle it. That's what I'm afraid of. The handling." Nia met his eyes. "I don't want you killing people to protect us. I don't want that blood on my conscience. On his future. Then what do you want?" "I want you to find out who it is and why they're watching. And then I want you to make them stop without violence. Can you do that? Or is violence all you know?" The challenge in her voice stung, but it was fair. "I can try. I can't promise it'll work, but I can try. That's all I'm asking." By that evening, Min-jae had answers. Ji-hoon's rival, the one he'd had business disputes with for months, had noticed Ji-hoon's repeated trips to the same neighborhood, had started investigating, had found Nia and the baby. "He hasn't made a move yet," Min-jae reported. "Just watching, gathering information. Tell him to meet me. Neutral ground. Tomorrow night." "Boss, is that wise?" "I'm not asking for permission." Ji-hoon's voice was sharp. "Set it up." The meeting was tense. Ji-hoon sat across from his rival in an abandoned warehouse, both surrounded by their respective guards. But instead of threats or negotiations about territory, Ji-hoon did something unprecedented. He told the truth. "The woman and child you've been watching, they're under my protection. Personal protection. Not business. Not leverage. They're off limits to all conflicts between us." His rival laughed. "You're getting soft. The great Ji-hoon, brought down by a woman and a baby. Call it what you want. But I have evidence of your operations in Busan. Enough to destroy you completely. I've never used it because our conflict has been profitable for both of us in some ways. But if anything happens to them, anything at all, I release everything to the police and to your own bosses. You'll be finished. You're threatening me over a woman? I'm offering you a deal. You leave them alone, completely. Don't watch them, don't investigate them, don't use them in any way. And I keep your secrets. We continue our business relationship as before. Everyone wins." His rival studied him carefully. "You really care about them." "Yes." "That's a dangerous weakness to show. Or a line in the sand. Your choice how you see it." After a long pause, his rival nodded. "Fine. They're off limits. But if you ever use them against me, the deal is off." "Agreed." When Ji-hoon returned to Nia's apartment to tell her it was handled, she was waiting with the baby already asleep in his crib. "Well," she asked. "Handled. No violence. Just information and negotiation. And I'm supposed to just trust that? Trust that tomorrow someone else won't see us and decide we're valuable leverage." Ji-hoon took a breath. "No, you're not supposed to just trust it. You're supposed to let me prove it. Day by day, choice by choice. Let me show you that I can be different. That I can protect without destroying." Nia was quiet for a long time. Then she made a decision that changed everything. "Okay, but we do this my way. Slow. Careful. You earn our trust, you don't buy it or demand it. And the first sign that your world is hurting him, we're done. Understand? I understand." Over the next month, Ji-hoon kept his word. He showed up every day. He was patient with the baby's moods and Nia's boundaries. He learned their routines and respected their space. He brought groceries instead of expensive gifts. He helped with laundry instead of sending money. He became part of their lives in small, meaningful ways. And somewhere in those ordinary moments, teaching the baby to stack blocks, making Mia laugh with his terrible attempts at cooking, reading bedtime stories in his accented English, Ji-hoon fell completely in love. Not with the idea of them, but with who they actually were. With Mia's quiet strength and sharp wit. With the baby's fearless joy and unconditional trust. With the family they were building together, imperfect and complicated and absolutely right. The transformation wasn't dramatic or sudden. It was gradual, built on 1,000 small choices to be better, to be present, to be worthy of the trust they were giving him. And slowly, Ji-hoon became the man his brother had always believed he could be. Someone who protected through love instead of fear, who built instead of destroyed, who chose connection over control. The black cleaner's baby had clung to him that first day, seeing something in Ji-hoon that he'd forgotten existed. And in teaching Ji-hoon how to love again, that baby and his mother saved him in ways they'd never fully understand. Because sometimes redemption doesn't come from grand gestures or dramatic moments. Sometimes it comes from simply showing up, being present, and choosing to be better than you were yesterday. This story reminds us that we are never too far gone to change, never too broken to heal, and never too lost to find our way home. It teaches us that children see the best in us before we see it in ourselves, that single mothers are warriors who deserve respect, not pity, and that family isn't always about blood. Sometimes it's about who chooses to stay when they could easily walk away. Love, in its purest form, isn't about perfection. It's about showing up consistently, honoring your promises, and being brave enough to let your walls down even when it terrifies you. Thank you so much for watching this story. If it touched your heart, please leave a comment below about what resonated with you most. Hit that like button and subscribe to the channel so we can continue bringing you these kinds of meaningful stories. Your support helps us create more content that matters. Until next time, remember, you're always one choice away from becoming the person you were meant to be.